Hey guys, it's Mark Yusko, and I'm here with Nye, recording the What is Crypto podcast.
What is going on, everybody? What is going on? It's your boy Nye, and welcome to another episode of What is Crypto, the podcast where we teach you a little bit about cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, and especially Bitcoin. So today I have a very, very, very special guest on the line. I have
Mark Yusko.
Mark is an American investor, hedge fund manager, and philanthropist. He is
The founder, CEO, and chief investment officer of Morgan Creek Capital Management, and the founder and managing partner of Morgan Creek Digital Assets,
an investment management firm that advises pension funds, endowments, and wealthy individuals. And Mark is a huge advocate of Bitcoin and blockchain technology. Today, we are going to dive into the conversation of what is Bitcoin. We're going to talk a little bit about the history, the origins, who is Satoshi Nakamoto, why was Bitcoin created, how does it work, and most importantly, why is Bitcoin important, and is it really the future of payments or a store of value? So thank you guys for tuning in. I just want to make the quick disclaimer. We are not giving any financial advice here. We are not financial advisors. We are simply here to help educate people about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and the future of money. And before we get started, if you get a chance, please take a moment to dive in to our Facebook group. Our community there has a lot of conversations going. So if you have any direct questions for the host, myself, my producer, Matthew, or any of the community members to learn more about Bitcoin, you can do so. Also, take a look at our Patreon. If you're inspired by the content that we've been creating here and you either want to make a small donation on a monthly basis to help us create even better content for you, or if you want even more content, completely unedited versions of these episodes, and much, much more, you can do so on Patreon. You can find all of that information on whatiscrypto.com. Now, without further ado, let's get into the episode. What is Bitcoin?
Nye, man, how long do we have? We could talk for days, literally, about what is Bitcoin. To me, it's the most essential question facing all of us today is you can go down the path of, what is it from a technology standpoint? And simply, it's the first use case of blockchain technology that has really flourished over the past decade. If you go back to the white paper, it's a peer-to-peer cash system. If you look at how it's evolved and morphed, you could argue that it is digital gold or a pure store of value, sound money. But there are a lot of ways we could go to describe it. For me, it's a manifestation of this technological evolution that has been occurring in computing power over the course of the last 60 years. It started in 54 with the mainframe, 68 with the microchip, 82 with the personal computer, 96 with the internet, 2010 with the mobile net, and 2024, which again I know is still 4 years from now, with the trust net. And the trust net, where Bitcoin is at the center of that, is the operating system of the internet of value, or the internet of exchange of value. And just like DOS powered personal computers and browsers powered the internet, and iOS and Android power our supercomputers that we call phones, blockchain is going to power this internet of value, and Bitcoin will be right at the center as the incentive system, the medium of exchange, and the store of value.
And can you give us a quick rundown of the history of Bitcoin, the origins, Satoshi, etc.?
Yeah, I think there are lots of theories on this and lots of suppositions and conspiracy theories. I think the facts are that there was a white paper published on Halloween of 2008 with the pen name Satoshi Nakamoto. When I say pen name, we're not sure that actually is a real person. It could be a he, it could be a she, it could be a they. There are some that think it's a group of corporations. There are others that think it's a central government. There are some that think it's the NSA or the CIA. lots of different theories on that, but let's just assume that it was a person. That person created an idea, a very elegant idea, to take the fundamentals of cryptography and cryptographic security and use that to solve the double spend problem. And what was the double spend problem? Well, if you think about the transition from the analog world to the digital world, as we digitize things, the ability to transfer them and to copy them became much easier. Like in the old days, if I wrote a letter and I wanted to make a copy of it, I had to get a dime and go to a Xerox machine, and then I could send a copy. Well, in the digital world, if I have an electronic version of that letter, I can punch a button and make millions of copies of it and send it out to millions of people through email. Let's say I had a digital music file and I want to send you that file. Now, if you get the copy or the original, you don't really care that much because it still plays on your computer. The music industry cares a lot because they'd rather you buy another original file so they get paid again, so they don't want me making copies. But as people thought about digital currency and improving currency, and why does it take 3 days to settle a cash wire? Why doesn't it happen instantaneously? And why does it cost 12% to send money across borders? We could do it instantaneously for zero in electronic form. The problem was this double spend problem, in that if I have a digital dollar in my bank account and I want to send you a dollar, I could say, I don't want to send you my real dollar, just make you a copy, send you the copy. Now, unlike the digital music file, that's a real problem because now you've got a counterfeit dollar. It's kind of hard to detect. Like if it's a counterfeit dollar bill, you got pens and scanners and little RFID things to check for counterfeiting of currency. Well, the digital computer file would be harder to check. And so the idea of counterfeiting and fraud was going to go unchecked, and that's bad for the value of a currency if you can create it at will or by fiat out of thin air. So what Satoshi did is they created a way to solve the double spend problem by using blockchain technologies, triple entry accounting, and having that public record to validate that I took a Bitcoin from my account, I sent it to your account, and the three of us on this call all give the thumbs up and said, yep, that really happened. And now it's a public ledger, it's immutable, it's permanent. We need a lot of computing power to make that happen using the mining system, which is really inappropriately named. It's really a computer security measure, really based on the idea of data security in data centers. Just elegant in its simplicity, beautiful in the idea of having a fixed supply of 21 million. I guess today that we're recording this is the day the 18 millionth Bitcoin will be mined. So there's only 3 million left for all of those people in the world that want to get one. What I love about the beauty of having a fixed supply is, unlike fiat currency, which can be printed forever and ever and devalued forever and ever, sound money like Bitcoin, by having a fixed supply, is a deflationary asset as opposed to an inflationary asset, and I think will be much, much more valuable over time.
Can you break that down for us on a simple level? Can you explain what you mean when you say deflationary and inflationary and how Bitcoin plays a role in those?
Yeah, really important point, and I apologize for slipping into jargon, as I am prone to do sometimes. But inflation is most people are familiar with this concept that prices go up over time, and even our central bank and our government in the United States says, oh, we have a 2% inflation target and we want prices to rise by 2%. Well, why is it that we want prices to rise by 2%? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Well, if you actually think about it, if your salary is fixed, let's say you have a minimum wage job, so your salary doesn't change year to year, but there's a built-in inflation of prices, and the antithesis of an inflation of prices is, as prices rise, the value of a currency deflates or devalues. So really what makes the price rise, what makes the inflation happen, is the creation of more currency, which devalues that currency. So it takes more of a currency with lesser value to buy the same amount of goods. And the best way to think about it is, let's say we had $1 million on a table, and then we printed another $1 million and put it next to that $1 million. What just happened to the value of that original $1 million? Well, it just fell in half because now we have twice as much money for the same amount of goods and services. And so if you think back to the history of money, particularly in the United States, from the start of the Republic in 1776 until 1913, when they founded the Fed, a dollar was pretty much worth a dollar. There were bouts of deflation, which means falling prices, and bouts of inflation, rising prices, around wars, and that usually had to do with supply and demand of goods and services and supply lines getting cut off and things like that. But at the end of the day, a dollar was worth a dollar because there was no central bank. There was no power that could create money out of thin air. And money, actually currency, was backed by gold or silver. So it had a commodity backing to it. Fast forward to 1913, we created the Federal Reserve Bank, and the Federal Reserve was allowed to create money out of thin air. Now, it still had to have backing by gold, meaning they were supposed to deposit gold in Fort Knox to back up the currency so you could exchange up until the 1930s your green pieces of paper and actually get gold in exchange. Then they outlawed that in the 1930s and said, now you can't own gold as a citizen. So it was illegal to own gold as a citizen in the United States. And then in 1973, they made the really big break. And again, the conspiracy theorist will say it was because they didn't have enough gold in Fort Knox to back all the currency. And so they just ended the gold standard and went to what's called fiat currency. Now, a fiat currency, hence the name, means that can be created by fiat, by decree, out of thin air. And therefore, the government has printed lots and lots and lots of dollars since 1973. And what that does is it creates an inflationary environment where prices rise because the value of the currency has been devalued, causing that inflation. So to flip it over and say, well, wouldn't it be better if you had a deflationary currency, a currency that didn't allow itself to be inflated away or devalued over time? And how would you do that? Well, you'd have to have a cap on the amount of supply. And if you think about supply and demand, if I have fixed demand and unlimited supply, the price will fall. If I have fixed supply and rising demand, the price will rise. So one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin, and one of the reasons you've seen it rise inextricably every year since it's been started in 2009, the low each year is higher every year, except one, 2015, but 9 out of the 10 years, and this will be the 10th out of the 11th, the value rises because demand is increasing. There are more people using it, more people buying it, more people owning it, and yet there is this fixed supply. And then actually on top of it, topic probably for another day, is that supply actually shrinks a little bit because there's some slippage. People lose their keys or people's hard drive crash or whatever it is. It's just like people lose money, right? Burns up in a fire, they lose their wallet. So there's a little bit of slippage in money supply over the long term. But because Bitcoin doesn't have a central bank that can at will increase the supply and devalue the currency, I think it's a superior form of money.
I want to give a big shout out to our first sponsor, and our first sponsor is Celsius Network. They are doing some really, really cool stuff, trying to revolutionize the way we think about the financial world and financial services. Celsius offers 10% annual interest on all crypto deposits, and there's no secret to how they're doing it. That 10% comes from them sharing 80% of their profits rather than the 0.0000001% that banks choose to share. Celsius is giving each user $10 in Bitcoin when they make their first 200 deposits or more in crypto or stable coins when they use the promo code NYE. These guys are working hard to revolutionize the way we look at the financial world, and they're taking on the banks. I'm personally a huge fan of what Celsius is building, so dive over to celsius.network to learn more and to use your promo code NYE in order to get $10 in BTC when you make your first deposit of $200 or more. Shout out to our sponsor, B21. B21 is a mobile app and a crypto on-ramp to invest in cryptocurrency assets like Bitcoin and Ethereum. It is your personal wealth manager for all your crypto assets. The goal with B21 is that it allows you to invest in a few clicks. No more complex passwords, keys, wallets, or tech talk. Just set your goal, choose your crypto asset, and you are ready to go. B21 is easier than any trading platforms on the market today. You don't need any trading experience to get started or to get involved with cryptocurrency. You simply choose from the available coins and tokens, you set your investment goals, and you easily monitor all the progress. You can even set up reoccurring investments to draw from your bank or your debit card every single month. Head over to b21.io to join the waitlist. b21.io. Now, we're going to have a whole episode on mining and other things like that in the future, but I also wanted to just get a very basic overview from you of how does Bitcoin work? How does this function?
So if you think about Bitcoin, it came to being out of the perceived need for a stable monetary unit, a stable currency. It was born out of the depths of the financial crisis when the banks had to be bailed out and there was worries that the financial system was going to collapse. And in fact, in the origin block, the first line is, the headline of the chancellor authorizing the second bank bailout in the UK. So if you think about that, how do you create a sound currency, or how do you create sound money? How do you create a fixed supply asset? Well, the best way to do it would be to have it coded, right? Have it be a mathematical formula that can't be changed. So it would have to be immutable. And so the simplest way to think about it is blockchain technology is, as I said, a triple entry ledger accounting system. Computers are used to validate the entries in the ledger. Every 10 minutes, we take a series of transactions. So I transfer you a Bitcoin and you transfer one to your mom, and your mom transfers one to the brother and sister or whoever. And after 10 minutes, all those transactions are recorded, and we all agree that, yep, they're all valid transactions. When I say we all, meaning all the computers that are used to validate the transactions, give a thumbs up and say, yes, this happened. And they create a block. And that block is then chained onto the previous blocks that occurred every 10 minutes before that. And that's where the term blockchain comes from. What blockchain technology in its manifestation of Bitcoin figured out is, if we want to have this ability to transact value between people without a trusted third party, without a bank, because like in the old days, if I wanted to send you $1, I had to have a bank account, you had to have a bank account, I'd have to send you that dollar, the bank would take some fees for that transfer, and you'd have to pay fees for your account, and I'd have to pay fees for my account. So a lot of rent-seeking middlemen. And what Bitcoin solved was the ability for me to transfer that value to you without that middleman. But we need a computer system, a network, to validate the transaction. And so just like the data center business, instead of having a warehouse full of computers, now they're GPUs or ASIC machines instead of CPUs. We plug in the power, and now we don't have to go find customers. We just get paid by the algorithm that the algorithm is using the computing power to validate the transactions on the Bitcoin blockchain. So it's a extension of the idea of the data center business. The thing I love about it is it's a lot easier to pay an algorithm than to try to go find customers and make sales pitches and negotiate prices. And the elegance of again, Satoshi Nakamoto at the beginning, at the genesis, realizing that by having an incentive system, which would be the Bitcoin itself, to reward people for contributing their computing power to the network was really one of the most genius technological advancements I've seen in my career.
You know, when we hear about Bitcoin on the media, or when you hear people talking about Bitcoin, mostly actually poisoned by the media, they really talk a lot about illegal trades, drugs, even assassination payments or ransomware attacks. Is that the only purpose for Bitcoin? And if not, why is it so heavily focused on in traditional media?
Yeah, so there's a couple reasons. So if you think about every technological evolution, the first users are always on the fringe, right? Who had the first pager? Drug dealers. Who used the first heavy computing power? Porn. Think about all the different people on the fringe who have used technology over the years. Who had the first mobile phone, other than Gordon Gekko on Wall Street? But it was the bad guys. And so when you had a cryptographically secure payment method that was pseudonymous, meaning you don't have to have your name attached to the account, and that address isn't linked to you personally, so you can't be identified, it appealed to people who were doing some shady stuff. So some of the early uses for Bitcoin transactions was a place called Silk Road, and people were dealing drugs. But the reality is that there are more drugs dealt with paper currency than Bitcoin by far. In fact, the rumor is 70% of our dollar bills have traces of cocaine on them. And what's really interesting about it, if you think about all the media attacks, and the media says, oh, it's used for drug deals, or it's used for these bad things and terrorist acts, I got news for you. There is orders of magnitude, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, I don't know the order of magnitude, but it's a giant order of magnitude, larger amount that's used in good old-fashioned greenbacks. Unfortunately, counterfeit greenbacks, lots of counterfeit $100 bills around the world. Most of the bad actors use cold, hard cash to do their bad stuff. And how do I know that? Well, there's a partner at A16Z who used to be a federal prosecutor, and she said, think about it. I prosecuted the bad guys for 20 years. And if I were going to try to go after somebody, would I rather them use a bag of cash or put their fingers on a keyboard? I'll take the keyboard all day long. Now, that doesn't stop the media from hyping, every bad thing that ever gets reported, but there's a reason for it. The incumbents don't want disruptive technology to be successful. So if you asked the street sweepers at the turn of the century in New York City what they thought of the horseless carriage, they would have told you that if you got in one, you would die because they didn't want to lose their job. And if you asked the people who made candles what they thought of Mr. Edison's wonderful glowing orb, they'd say you'd go blind if you looked at it. But light bulbs were a pretty good invention. Or my grandfather-in-law, who was ridiculed for leaving the safe job of the train company to go to work for that upstart airplane company, because everybody knew that if you got on an airplane, once you got past a certain miles per hour, your body would cave in on itself. So it wouldn't possibly be safe to fly on an airplane. So all of that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, what you and I and the rest of the community call FUD, is spread by the media and the incumbents. Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan calls it a fraud, or Warren Buffett calls it rat poison squared. I'm like, well, how do you know what rat poison tastes like, Warren? Or his partner, Charlie Munger, goes up, one-ups him and says, it's like trading in harvested dead baby brains. I'm like, WTF, Charlie? Seriously? Dead baby brains? Why are they so histrionic about this stuff? Well, think about it. Berkshire Hathaway, 48% of their holdings are financial services companies, banks. Jamie Dimon runs the biggest bank. The banks are under attack because blockchain technology will do to financial services what the internet did to media and commerce, and what Amazon did to the Amazon roadkill of brick and mortar commerce. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies will do to the banking system.
The final question I got for you, Mark, is Bitcoin really the future of payments? And a store of value / wealth?
The original vision was that this was going to be a peer-to-peer cash system that would be used for payments. And the challenge is, in a payment system, you have to either be speedy or secure. And you can't have both. So, Visa and MasterCard are very speedy, but they're not very secure. They get hacked, multiple times every year. How many times have people had, listening to this, had to get a new Visa or MasterCard number because of fraud? It's happened to me twice in the last 2 years. So they've chosen speed over security. Bitcoin, on the other hand, been around 10 years. There's not been one fraudulent transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain. Just let that sink in for a second. Hundreds of millions of transactions, billions of dollars of payments every day, not one fraudulent transaction. So, yes, it's basically said we're going to be the most secure computing network in the world. And that's what they are. But it's not very fast. And so processing the blocks is really not super speedy. Here's the interesting thing. We don't need the core chain to be super speedy because we don't have to do every transaction on chain. If you think about Visa and MasterCard, right? If I use my Visa card, it doesn't immediately take money out of my account, right? It batches all the transactions of all the customers on a monthly basis, sends us bills, and then withdraws the money from our account. So it's a batching system. It's a second layer, even a third layer system. So what's going to happen in payments is whether it's Lightning Network or some other second layer or even third layer system is going to be developed. And remember, we're only 10 years in to the development of the Bitcoin network. So as a payment system, there's work to be done. And I actually don't think it'll be primarily on-chain, first order of magnitude. I think it'll be like the internet. Remember, the internet had 80 protocols, and today we have 5. Right? We have HTTP, we have TCP/IP, we have SMTP, we have www. Only 5 out of the 80 survived. And we have multiple layers in the tech stack that allow us to do different things. And most people don't care what TCP/IP and couldn't explain how it works, but they know that their Visa card, can process transactions and they pay at the end of the month. So I think the same thing's going to happen in payments in Bitcoin. Secondly, as a store of value, I think it is. And I think it's one of the most perfect stores of value you could have because it's digital gold. And just a quick story on this is for 5,000 years, gold has been money, right? 1 ounce has bought a fine man's suit for 5,000 years, back to the time of ancient Egypt or the Romans to today. Go to Savile Row, buy a suit, $1,500. That's what gold is. Now, if you think about that, in 73, we went off the gold standard and we converted to fiat. In the history of the world, there have been 775 paper fiat currencies. 3/4 of them, actually 77% of them, have disappeared. The oldest living fiat currency is the pound sterling. It's almost 400 years old. But all of them will eventually disappear because governments cannot stop themselves from spending, therefore printing, and therefore devaluing their currency. So the same thing that happened in Zimbabwe a number of years ago, same thing happened in Venezuela the last 2 years, will happen to the UK and Japan and the US and Europe and every place else that has a fiat currency. What Bitcoin has proven, like gold, it does act as a perfect store of value and accretes in a positive direction overall value of the network each year that it's been around. And because of that, it has become, particularly to the millennial generation, that perfect store of value. And so if you ask anyone over 35, do they own Bitcoin? They're like, no, not really. Ask anybody under 35, do you own gold? Not really. The other reason that Bitcoin, I think, wins as digital gold, with Bitcoin, you can divide it into 8 decimal points or a Satoshi, and you can get very precise in how you allocate your gold around the world. And then the final point is carrying gold bricks around. It's really hard. They're really heavy. They're really bulky. They actually do go through the metal detector, so that's kind of cool because they're inert, so they don't set off the metal detector. but it's really hard to get them around. And Bitcoin, on the other hand, you can carry it in your head. You can carry it on your phone too, but it's very easy to transport, very easy to transact, and I think has a lot of advantages to gold. So I think long-term it'll be a payment system, but probably as a second or third layer. But as digital gold, I think it's already won.
Thank you so much for coming on the show, brother.
Great to be with you. I love the new format. I really appreciate being one of the inaugural guests, and I look forward to doing it again. Although I tell you, at one of these points, rather than doing it electronically, I'd like to do it over a Mai Tai in Bali, face to face. So let's make that happen.
That sounds perfect to me, man. I'm all into that. That sounds great. Well, I really enjoyed that episode with Mark today. We had a lot of fun on the show. So I really want to give a big thank you to Mark Yusko. He's a really, really quality guy. And as you can tell, very, very highly educated on the topics of investing and especially Bitcoin. So I think he's a great guest to describe what Bitcoin is and why it's important. But I also want to make sure that you understand as a listener that it is extremely important for you to do your own research, or as we call it in the crypto space, DYOR. So what I want you to do this week is I want you to learn about the very first steps of investing in Bitcoin. I don't necessarily want you to put your own money in. I'm never going to advise you to put your own money in. But what I would like you to do is I would like you to sign up for Coinbase. This way, you can understand how an exchange works, you can get the feeling of it, and you can understand how simple it is to work with an exchange like Coinbase in order to invest in cryptocurrencies, in Bitcoin specifically. So, like I said, I'm not advising you to go buy Bitcoin, but I think the very first step of what you should do in order to learn about how this space works is to, one, go download Coinbase on your mobile phone, sign up, become a member. If you want, there's a link in the description below where you can directly download Coinbase and get involved in cryptocurrency immediately. And the second thing I'd really like you to do is I'd like you to go watch one video on Bitcoin. So go over to YouTube, type in "what is Bitcoin?" There are several great teachers who will show you and describe to you in different words and in a different format than Mark did what Bitcoin is and why it's important. Thank you for listening to the What is Crypto podcast. It means a lot to me that you guys have tuned in, you have listened, and you have given your time and energy to educate yourself on the topics of Bitcoin and crypto. And even further, it means a lot to me that you have done so by listening to me. So please, if you don't mind, give us a like, give us a rating on iTunes. It means a lot to us. Write us a comment. Tell us if you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it. Please also subscribe to us on iTunes and other platforms such as Spotify. And finally, guys, if you want to listen to the full extent of this interview, along with more comments and more details, you can subscribe for a very, very minimal fee on our Patreon page, and it gets you a lot of extra cool content. So guys, again, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode of What is Crypto?